All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. This morning, sitting back with me, I got Andy Nelson, who is a crowd surfing fiend here in Austin, Texas. With roots from the Linfield University to get his Bachelor of Arts in History, Andy was an account manager at One Up Floors and a retail sales associate at Carpet Stop. Fast forward to today, and you can find Andy's singles such as No More, The Future, Vice, No Question, and The Charm on all streaming platforms by looking up Lep the Charm. Andy is now an MMA fighter here in Austin, Texas, and a security guard at the Comedy Mothership, and he's also an artist and producer. I'm stoked to have Andy on the show this morning to talk about all things fighting, food, diet, goals, confidence, storytelling, and who knows what else. Andy, welcome to your episode on David's Saturday Night Sit Back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. Are you happy?
I'm ready to go. I'm happy.
Yeah? What are you happy about?
I'm happy with where I am in life. I got an awesome girlfriend. We own a house together here in Texas. Got a cool job working with all my best friends, and I get to train and make money and hang out with my girlfriend. So
It's not a bad life,
life's
it
good.
sounds like.
Yeah.
You call her Lettuce.
Lettuce.
What's her actual name? I don't think I ever found it, but
Yeah, her name is Leticia. Most people mispronounce it and say Letitia, but it's Leticia. And so I have all sorts of nicknames for her. I call her Lettuce, Lechuga.
Lechuga?
Yeah, it's lettuce in Spanish.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
What's the actually, before I ask that, why, based off what you know from our phone call and just what we might talk about, why do you think the audience should listen to the episode today?
I have a pretty unique experience in life. I've tried a lot of different things. Yeah, I have a interesting perspective on life, I'd say.
What's the most exciting thing that you're working on right now?
Right now, I have a fight coming up March 1st, so I'm pretty focused on that, gearing up for that, getting my weight down, and training hard for that.
Is that the one that's going to be in San Antonio?
That one's actually going to be in Austin, which is super nice.
Ah.
So I don't have to go get an Airbnb. I can sleep in my own bed. I can cut weight at home. It's going to make a huge difference.
There's this, back in the day, I used to work at a gym, and there was a guy who came in one night, and I think he was cutting weight for something military related, but he had on one of those, like, full body sweatsuits.
Mm-hmm.
And before he came to the gym, he had drank a ton of plum juice, I think. And he was just moving back and forth between the treadmill and the sauna, and was basically just trying to sweat as much as he possibly could. And
Yeah.
Dude, it was insane just because, like, imagine trying to use the bathroom while you're, like,
That
drenched in
dehydrated.
sweat, but then
Yeah.
also, like, have the sweatsuit that you're trying to take off. It just,
Mm-hmm.
I felt for the guys. Like, this looks miserable.
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a wrestler back before they really knew there were better ways to go about cutting weight. Because now there's a bunch of science behind it that makes it easier. It's going to suck regardless, but they've come to find that you don't have to starve yourself. You can still eat. You just have to eat the right things. Drink plenty of water at the beginning part of the weight cut and make it easy on yourself. Because back when my dad was cutting weight, he would not eat, wear the sauna suit. He'd, like, be in the sauna sweating. He'd take the suit off, wipe the sweat off with a credit card to open his pores up, and then put the suit back on and get back to it, and you don't have to suffer like that. It's going to suck regardless, but there's ways to make it easier.
Yeah. Was that before, after, or during the 40 years that he worked for the school district?
That was before, so that was when he wrestled in high school. He actually went to the same high school I went to in Puyallup, Washington, Rogers, and then went to Washington State University, and then he came back and taught at Surprise Lake Middle School, and then ended up going to Five High School for most of his career, and then opened up a junior high, and then ended up in the district office.
Was that a small enough school that when you started going there, people knew not who you were, but they would say your last name and be like, are you related to, I don't know his first name. What's his first name?
Jeff.
Are you related to Jeff? Was it that kind of school?
Not so. I mean, it's pretty interesting. My grandpa actually taught at this school too, so there's a long family history there. My grandpa actually started the girls' soccer program at this high school. So I guess I was kind of known there. Plus, my mom was a teacher too, not at that school, but my parents were just, like, pretty well known in the education world.
Yeah.
So they kind of knew who I was, but they knew them more than me for sure.
I went to a small Christian school for a little bit, and my brother got expelled from it for drinking or not drinking, smoking weed on campus. And my freshman year, when I got there, and they were doing roll call on the first day, almost every teacher in every class, when they said my last name, they were like, "Are you related to Marco Claire?" And I'd say, "Yes, that's my older brother." And then they would say something like, "We'll be keeping our eye on you." And I was like, "Hey,
I didn't even do anything yet.
that's not fair."
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't smoking weed.
That's not me.
I'm not my brother.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of sucks, the preconceived notion of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny.
Where's so for those before we were off mic, remind us where a home for you is.
So I was born in Tacoma, Washington. I grew up in Puyallup, Washington. Puyallup is like, every time someone just reads where I'm from, they butcher it. They're like Puyallup. There's a bunch of like tribal land in Washington, so a bunch of names that most people don't know how to pronounce. So yeah, grew up in Puyallup, Washington. Went to college in Oregon, so I spent most of my life in the Pacific Northwest, and then I moved out to Texas in 2022.
What was growing up like in? I'm about to butcher it.
Puyallup.
Puyallup.
Puyallup. It was awesome, man. I had a great childhood. Spent a lot of time outdoors, climbing trees, riding bikes with friends, playing sports. Really no complaints. I had an awesome childhood. I would do it all over again.
How old are you?
I'm 30.
You're 30, so fucking old.
I know, old as shit. Fuck, I'm almost dead.
So we're in 2024, so you were born in 94?
Uh-huh.
Are you, so knowing like what you know about how kids grow up now, I don't know if you have any like teens or young people in your life, like nephews or nieces or whatnot. Are you glad you're a 90s baby?
So happy.
I am too, dude.
So happy. I mean, I feel like we're kind of that generation that's like an in-between generation, because we had the childhood of outdoors, not really electronic, stuff like that. And then when we hit our like junior high school years, that's when that boom of, phones and social media and everything was just starting to happen.
Yeah.
So we had already like developed our minds a bit to be normal humans before all that craziness happened. So just seeing kids now, I'm just really happy that wasn't a thing, because I feel for parents now, because you're almost forced to let them have the iPad and the games and the phones, and it's kind of like the easy way out when your kid's acting up, and you're like, here, just here's your iPad.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I can't blame them. I'm not a parent, so
Me neither.
I don't understand how hectic it could be, and but I am glad that I grew up when I did.
Did you guys ever have those at-home laser tag kits by chance, where you had?
Yes. Yeah.
Dude, we had some epic battles in my neighborhood with those things.
Yeah, those things, Nerf guns, all that fun stuff. I forgot about those. That's funny. That's a funny callback.
I mean, we did a ton. We like, similar to you, like rode bikes, tree houses, basketball. But as I've been thinking about like my childhood, those laser tag battles, dude, we probably did that for a couple of years. And I still remember it was like Annie, James, Danny, myself. Sometimes my brother Mark would join us, and there was like a whole crew of people, and we'd be out there for hours, and like, just good memories, good times.
You just unlocked a memory. Like, I had completely forgotten about those things, but it just like came back to me. I'm like, oh yeah, I played with those so much back in the day. Yeah. Were they like red and blue?
Yes.
Right? Yeah. I remember those.
Yeah. So
that's hilarious.
Hopefully this isn't a dangerous question, but if you did hypothetically have a kid now or in like the next couple of years or whatever, do you think you would try to raise them sort of the way that you were raised, in the sense of like, get outside, go have fun? Like, what do you think how would you be raising your kid if you had a little mini Andy right now?
Yeah, if I had a little mini Andy and they were anything like me, they would probably have to be outside, just because I was so energetic as a kid. That I don't think I'd even be able to sit down on an iPad and just lose myself in it. But I would try my best. It's hard for me to judge parents for letting their kids be on iPads, because life's hectic and kids are crazy, and sometimes you just need a break.
Yeah.
But I would definitely, make it so, hey, you do have to spend an hour outside or something like that, just to try to make them normal humans as best as possible. But also, we live in a technological world, so obviously going to get them on that stuff too, so they're not like, behind the curve with that.
Yeah. Me and some friends were talking about this the other day, and they were saying that like they would feel obligated to let their child have like a phone or an iPad or whatever it is because they wouldn't want their kid to feel like they were the oddball out. But
For
at
sure.
the same time, like my sort of rebuttal to that is I've always sort of felt like the oddball out, and like was it really stressful and hard as a kid? Like totally,
Yeah.
100%. But at the same time, I'm very happy with who I am today.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe like if that's not a bad thing. Like
Yeah.
if your only reason for giving your kid an iPhone is I don't want them to feel weird, maybe you just shouldn't give it to them and
Right.
just see how they develop. And it's similar to you. Like I don't have kids.
Mm-hmm.
Neither do my friends who I was talking with. We were just spitballing about the, what would we do?
Yeah.
But I do wonder like how many parents have given their kids devices just because like, oh, we don't want Andy to feel like the oddball out. So there you
Probably
go.
a lot of them, I would guess.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it, like the kids like, oh, well, Martin has an iPhone, like why can't I have one? And it's just like probably a constant battle with that kid. So eventually it's like, all right, here's your iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of little Andy, is this let me turn my brightness up here. Is this you?
That is I,
Look at that kid.
little ginger baby.
How old were you there? Like 4, 5, 6?
I don't even know. Probably younger than that. I'd say maybe like 3 or 4. That's definitely before preschool.
Do you even remember this
No,
picture being taken?
not at all. I remember that pool, but no, I don't remember that picture at all.
Is that at your house?
No, so we lived in a place called Gem Heights growing up, and it was like the neighborhood pool, and we spent a lot of time there growing up.
What did that unlock any memories seeing that?
Yeah, I mean, I spent a lot of my childhood at that pool. A lot of birthdays, and I had met most of my childhood friends in that neighborhood. So, yeah, spent a lot of time there.
And then there's one other one I wanted to show you. Where'd it go? Maybe. Let's go with this one. College graduation?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, most people wear nice pantsuits under their whatever that outfit is called. I was wearing shorts and sandals and a t-shirt.
That totally me in college. Like it'd be piss and rain outside.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd show up to class in sandals and a board shorts because it was still 70 degrees outside.
Oh, yeah.
And everyone else would be bundled up in like thick winter coats like
Yeah.
you have on. I'm like, guys, it's 70. Like just because it's wet doesn't mean it's cold.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't even own a pair of jeans until high school. I wore shorts all the time. It could be snowing outside, and I was wearing shorts.
So knowing what I know about you, that you're into music, you're a fighter, you're a security guard, you're also a history major.
Mm-hmm.
Tell what happened there.
So, like I said, I've done a lot of interesting things. Both my parents being educators, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I was like, yeah, I really wanted to coach. That was kind of my main goal. Still kind of is my main goal. But to coach really and be able to make some money, at least at the beginning, you have to teach as well. Because especially high school coaches, they don't make anything really. So I went to college to be a teacher, and I wanted to teach high school. And when you teach high school, you have to major in the category you want to teach in. And all the coolest teachers I ever had in high school were history and social studies teachers. So I was like, yeah, I'll do history. Plus, on top of that, I was never a great test taker. So I am much better at writing papers, and a majority of what history majors do is write papers. So I decided to do that.
Dude, I could have used you as a friend in college. History is probably one of my hardest classes. I'm a decent writer, but I don't know if it's the memorization aspect or what. But yeah, history was a rough go at it for me.
Yeah, I'm very interested in history too. I love looking at different wars, and just like different cultures across the world and how they became what they are. So it definitely helped that I was interested in it too.
What's one of the most interesting cultures on planet Earth?
Interesting cultures on planet Earth.
Actually, could I rephrase that question?
Yeah.
If I had a teleportation device and I could transport you to any location in any year that you wanted, where would you like me to send you?
I would love to go witness Genghis Khan when he was at his height, because there's just not a lot of stuff out there about that. Like even like where he's buried, there's just not even like, it's so secretive. But like his empire formed what is most of the modern world today. Like his impact was insane. Like his bloodline is most of the people in Asia still, because he just was spreading his seed throughout the entire place. So I'd say Genghis Khan. I just want to see it live.
That's a great answer. All right, so then now let me ask you a follow-up question. What's the do you know the name of the stadium that UT plays at?
I couldn't tell you.
Let's just call it for today's purposes UT Stadium.
Okay, perfect.
Let's say that after the podcast today, you get in your car and you turn on the radio, and there's a advertisement that there is a modern day gladiator battle going on at UT Stadium. There will be 12 people in the stadium, and they will fight until there is only one left standing. Would you go?
Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Why?
I mean, that's another piece of history that's very interesting is people used to fight to the death in front of large crowds of people. I mean, most of human history is built on violence and people being entertained by it. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to miss that. That sounds like something that wouldn't happen ever again.
Neither would I. I'm on board with you 1,000%.
Yeah.
Would it change your answer at all, or would it change your perspective on the fight if this was 12 people who were sentenced to death versus if it was 12 volunteers who said, yeah, I would do that, and maybe the volunteers are getting, the ones who lose, maybe they're getting some sort of payment, as in, like, you know, if you pass, as
Like
a
a
way of
death
saying
benefit?
thank you for doing this, we are going to give your family $1 million.
Yeah.
So the people who are fighting, would that affect your emotions about attending the event at all?
Probably not so much. I think it could affect how the fight took place because both options are motivated by different things. So I would say the people who were getting the money would probably not fight as hard as the people who were just fighting for their lives. But I'd still go watch either way, I'd say.
So you and me we're down. We're built from the same cloth in the sense of, like, this is history. This used to be a thing. Like, of course I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
How do you think the bulk of the crowd would react? So you're all in there. There's 12 people. We show up. I think that stadium fits close to, isn't it like 80 or 90,000 people?
Most large college stadiums are like sitting right around 100,000 people.
So there's 100,000 people, mix of people from Austin, mix of people who maybe traveled, and we think we want to be at this thing, right? And the crowd's cheering, and then the bell, ding, 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 and then the first person gets stabbed in the gut with a sword. How do you think the bulk of the crowd is going to react to that, if you had to speculate?
Yeah, I would imagine most people like the concept of this. And then once it gets down to it, most people would probably be pretty shocked, and there might be some throwing up and some leaving.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I've never seen anyone get killed right in front of me, so I don't even know how I'd react, so.
Me neither. The closest I've seen, I don't even know. The closest I've been to seeing death was actually about 3 weeks ago at Eddie V's.
Oh,
and
shit.
while we were eating, in the middle of our meal, we heard someone start yelling, "Help him! Help him!" And we look over, and two servers go running over to this guy, and one of them gets up behind him, and he put his arms underneath the guy's armpits to, like, sort of lift his arms up like this. And then the second server takes the palm of his fist, shout out to Ken, Ken's a stud, and just bam, like, hits him, like, right in the gut, and then hit him about 3 times. And we didn't see the meat or whatever it was lodged in his throat come out of his mouth, but whatever it was did. And then the server dropped his arms, and Ken sort of put his hand on his shoulder and was like, "You're good." And the guy's like, "Yeah, I'm good, thanks." And then everything went back to normal so quick, it almost felt weird. And me and my friend were just, me and my, shout out Tyler, me and Tyler were like,
Did that just happen?
yeah.
That was definitely Ken. That wasn't Ken's first time doing that.
No way.
He saved many lives doing that, I'd say. I've never seen a Heimlich like that from the front. Like, usually you go behind and you do it, like, all yourself, but he must know something we don't.
I mean, it was a very specific, like, palm out, bam. So if you start choking today on a York Mint, that's how
That's what you're gonna make it happen.
Yeah. Where do you think the appeal or desire to want to coach or teach people comes from?
Definitely my parents. I think just, like, in my DNA, that's just how I'm built. Both my parents are very selfless people, and they want the best for others. They're both like beloved in their respective school districts as people who always looked out for their kids. So it's just in me, and I think I'm very good at translating my knowledge into a way that's digestible by multiple different types of people. So I think I'd almost be doing a disservice by not teaching or coaching in some way later in life.
You want more coffee?
I'm good on coffee. I'll take some water though.
Just normal water, or you want like a
A Waterloo would be fantastic.
I got you. Let me get you a cold one. Terry Blacks.
Oh yeah.
Hell yeah.
One of the many perks of working at the mothership is we get all sorts of free merch and stuff like that. So this is one of them.
I'm gonna go on a very quick Terry Blacks tangent.
All right.
First time I went there, the line was out the door and then past the how they have that separate little grilling station.
I have to be honest, I've never actually gone in person.
Get the fuck out of my house.
I've had it multiple times, but it's always been brought to the mothership, so I've never actually like gone and paid for it and had the Terry Blacks experience. So I'm kind of a poser wearing this shirt right now.
Yeah, you are. Me and about 10 to 12 guys from my gym get together for a meal every 2 to 3 months, and the next time we go, whether it's Terry Blacks or someone else, I'll shoot you a text, and if you'd like to go with us, I'd love to introduce you to some really good gentlemen out here in Austin, Texas.
Hell yeah.
But the line is out the door and basically around the restaurant, and so when we first pulled up, we were like, well, do we want to stand in this line? We're not line people. We need that instant gratification.
Don't we all?
You fucking feed me?
Yeah.
we need that.
Yeah.
And so at first we were like, that's not again. I was like, no, come on, it's Terry Blacks. We're in Austin. Like, let's just wait.
Yeah.
So the line moves. Like,
yeah.
They're getting people through that quick. And then at one part of the line, they have a couple of ice buckets filled with water, wine, beer, like all these drinks. And so you can pay and you can get a drink while you're standing in line. I'm like, okay, genius.
Yeah.
This is
they got
fantastic.
it dialed in over there.
So then you go in and you choose your sides first. They usher you to the meat counter where there's probably 6 different butchers cutting meat.
Mm-hmm.
They ask you what kind of meat you want. You tell them. They ring you up. It's premier pricing. Like it's not, this is not a $15 lunch. Like you're going to be paying anywhere from like $40 to $90 for a meal. And then you seat yourself at a table and there's no servers. There's a couple people collecting trash. But what I noticed was that not only are they just funneling people through this place extremely quick, but since they have less staff than a normal restaurant does and they're charging a premier price, the margins on this place have to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like whoever opened, I imagine Terry is who opened Terry Blacks.
Probably.
I tried to find the owner once and I could only find I forget her name, but I imagine who the daughter is of Terry's is running it now.
Yeah.
But I thought this has got to be one of the best business concepts ever created in terms of like pricing and margin, and it's a crazy operation, man.
Yeah, I mean they don't have to pay for servers. Obviously, meats are gonna be expensive, but like with how much they're charging for like each slice of meat, like brisket, ribs, all that, like I'm sure their profit margins are insane. And just sold out every single day.
Every day.
Yeah.
Would you like some nicotine?
I'll take some nicotine.
Dude, there you go. Are you good with cinnamon or would you like wintergreen or cool mint?
Cinnamon.
Go with the cinnamon.
Cinnamon guy for sure. Have you ever tried the Zimmos?
No.
That's my favorite one. I can't find them anywhere. Actually, I have a buddy named CJ who works at the mothership with me. I train with him too. He has a place by his house. It's like the only place in Austin that sells him. So like every week I'm like, can you grab me a couple cans of the Zimmos?
Yeah, CJ, yes, sir. That CJ?
CJ Dinsmore. He didn't say yes, sir to me, but maybe.
Oh, I guess he respects me more than he respects me. Dude, CJ goes to my gym. I work out at the Golds and Bee Cave.
Oh, okay.
And I wouldn't say we're like friends or anything, but we've probably had like 25-minute conversations in the gym.
Oh, nice.
I love talking to that guy.
Dude, he's awesome.
He's so cool.
He when you first get to know him, he's very like in his shell, and kind of like a quiet kid. But then as you get to know him more, he definitely opens up.
I think that's one of the reasons I like talking with them is because for some reason, whenever I come across someone who I can tell is like a little bit more introverted, I have this thing where like I need to break them out of their shell. And so I think I almost see him as like a challenge in a way of like, man, I really want CJ to feel comfortable around me or like he can open up to me. And I think we're like that now. But no, he definitely is a quieter guy for sure.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I first met him at 10th Planet, just training with him, and we'd have conversations there, but like didn't really get to know him that much until he started working on the mothership, and now we're boys. So he's definitely come out of his shell, and I see him for who he is now. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, CJ's an awesome guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about your music for a little bit.
All right.
One picture that I wanted to show you is from March 5th, 2018.
Okay.
And your caption was "Only the beginning."
Yep.
You remember this picture?
I do.
Talk to me about it.
So that was actually when you're first starting music, you're gonna do all sorts of shows in places that are unideal, and
Sweaty basements.
pretty much.
Sweaty, crowded basements.
Pretty much. I'd honestly probably take a sweaty basement over that place. That was like a super quiet, like nice coffee shop. And that's not a place for the kind of like energetic rap that I was bringing. Luckily, I had a good amount of friends show up to that so they were able to kind of bring the energy with me. But if they weren't there, it would have been me doing my thing in front of a bunch of people, like sitting down at a nice quiet coffee shop, which is not the kind of feng shui I usually go for with my music.
You're not trying to perform at Mozart's?
No, definitely not. I like to go crazy and jump around and crowd surf and sweat and all that stuff. So
How'd you get into rapping?
it actually kind of happened by accident. Like back in high school and stuff, like at track practice or football practice, my friends and I would like kind of roast rap battle each other, and it was just kind of a fun thing we did. And then in college, I think it was my sophomore year, I made a song for the football team, just something to do. And it ended up like kind of blowing up. Like it got like 50,000 plays on SoundCloud, and then the video guy for the football team ended up making like a highlight video with the song as the background, and then our team would run out to it for every single game. So it like kind of became this like anthem for the school. And I had a lot of fun making it, and I kind of saw that I was like decent at it. So made another song after it just to kind of see like what the people's response to it was, and that got another like 30,000 plays on SoundCloud. So I was like, oh, there's something here. So yeah, that just kind of opened up this whole new world to me, and I was kind of the only person doing it at Linfield at the time. And then I just kind of met these people along the way at Linfield who were kind of like dipping their toe in the music world. And then we just kind of got together and we started this group called Rogue. And it was kind of like a label in a way, I guess. But yeah, we just ended up all making music together. And then we did a memorial concert my senior year for one of our buddies who got killed. And packed out the gym and did a concert for that. And it was really cool. It kind of like changed the path of my life by accidentally starting to do music. So
how did that feel to be at a football game and hearing your music being
it was
played?
so cool. It was so cool. I can't even lie. It was so cool. Like obviously running out to go play football, like you're going to be hyped up, the crowd's roaring, it's a fun thing, but then on top of that to have like your song playing in the background, it was always like a super surreal feeling. I was like, I can't believe this is happening right now.
How'd your buddy get killed?
It was I think it was suicide by cop. So he was a RA, which you know what an RA is in college, right?
No.
Resident advisor. They're basically like
Yes,
the
thank
person
you.
in the dorms who are in charge in a way.
Yeah.
So on the weekends they would do campus walks where they would just kind of go check in different dorms, make sure shit's all good. So we were all out like at a party, and my buddy Parker was doing his RA thing, and then he was going to go to 7-Eleven, buy some beer, come meet us out later. And at 7-Eleven, some random dude came in and stabbed him 6 times.
Jesus.
And then left the scene, and then when the cops got there, he came back, and the cops ended up shooting him a bunch of times and killing him too. So I think it was death or suicide by cop, but maybe he was just a crazy dude who just wanted to kill somebody. Who knows? But that really shocked the world at Linfield and all of us. So
Yeah, I'm sorry, man, to hear about that. We had a guy my junior year of high school that was his name was Chris, and he was riding his motorcycle to our junior prom, and he passed through an intersection, and there was a driver who didn't see a stop sign, hit him on contacts, and him flying like, I don't remember, 30, 40, 50, a very long way. And it same thing, like you're so young, you know, that
Yeah.
you're not even thinking about the concept of death yet. So I apologize for that. So after high school and up until about Well, actually, let me ask you this: do you still rap?
No, not really. I still want to. I still make beats and I do production for friends that make music still. And I'll like mix their vocals and make the beat for them and all that stuff. So I'm still in the world a bit. But moving to Texas, I kind of moved away from my friends I was making music with. And I kind of just transitioned my focus and intention to fighting. So that kind of takes up a bulk of my time. Um, but no, I still want to at some point get back into music and rapping again. A big part of it too is I don't have a MacBook anymore, and
Mm,
the laptop I have now, when I tried to record, there was like a half second of latency. So I would say something in the mic, and then in my headphones there would be a delay, so it was just kind of messing me up. So that's when I just like I'm just gonna make beats and mix for people right now.
gotcha. When at the time that you posted that picture, what did you think that was the beginning of?
I mean, at that time, I was freshly graduated from college. I was living in a house with other people who were making music, and that kind of was our life at the time. Like, we were fully set on doing the music thing. And at that time, I was working at One Up Floors in the warehouse. I just gotten this random job after college and driving a forklift, cutting carpet, all that stuff. And then I told my boss at the time, I was like, I'm gonna quit this job, move to LA with my friends, and we're gonna pursue this thing full time. And the boss was like, yeah, how about I see I see potential in you to be a salesman. So how about I just train you in that you can make the most money you've ever made and still pursue music on the side. And that was too tempting to say no to. So I was kind of living in two worlds. I was like in the professional world and still doing music, but like both were going pretty well. So that was just kind of like I knew cool things were coming at that time. It was still like a blossoming music career at the time. So that was the beginning.
I thought I grabbed a screenshot of it, but I was just looking. I don't think there was. But on April 1st, 2017, you made a post, and it was something where you were talking about how it was the craziest night of your life, and you were trying to start a movement. Do you happen to know? Do you remember that post and what the movement was that you were trying to start?
That was probably the start of Rogue at the time. It was just a collective of us that were like just beginning to make music. And I think we just wanted to start the movement of Rogue and our music and telling our story. So that was probably that, I would guess. And that was because I graduated college in 2017. So that was kind of the beginning of like, all right, time to focus on music full time now.
With where you're at now, what do you think your objective in life is, and why?
Objective in life. I mean, my kind of long term goal right now is to get as much experience fighting where whenever I eventually open my own gym, people who I'm training, my future fighters, will take me serious with what I say because they see that I've done it myself.
Why do you want to open your own gym?
It's kind of like I've always kind of seen myself being a teacher, being a coach, and I've been an athlete my entire life, and eventually my body's not going to allow me to do that. So I want to take the knowledge and experience I've gained and be able to pass that on to the next generation of fighters so I can still be involved in that world and kind of live vicariously through them.
How'd you get into fighting?
So my dad was a wrestling coach, and I was in a singlet before I could even walk. There's a picture of me out there, literally as a baby, being held up by my mom, wearing a little singlet that my dad was coaching at the time. One of his like team managers like made this little baby singlet for me. So I grew up wrestling my whole life, and then played football in college. So like my whole identity throughout my life was as an athlete. And then I graduated college and I kind of like went through this lull of like not exercising anymore, like an identity crisis in a way. Like I just didn't know who I was. And then right before the pandemic, the apartment I was living in, like a 20-second walk from my apartment was an MMA gym. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this out, just kind of do it to stay in shape. And then the second I went in that gym, I was hooked, and I was like, oh, I need to do this, and it like literally changed my life.
What hooked you?
I just forgot how much I loved competing, and I loved because I was pretty good at wrestling, and going in this MMA gym, I was able to compete with these professional fighters and be in there with like no real fighting experience. So I found my identity again in that. And I was like, oh, this is who I am. This is what I've always been. So it was kind of like lit a fire under me again, and I was completely revamped on life and excited to go at it again.
Fuck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to ask you to make a broad generalization based off the small group of fighters that you know. Do you feel like a lot of guys have a similar story to you? Because I was talking to Andrew about this a little bit, and he, I forget exactly what he said, but he was talking about how he feels like he delivers something similar, that
Mm-hmm.
people sort of wander into the gym and maybe they're not sold on fighting, but then once they get there, it's sort of like they almost find themselves.
Yeah.
Do you know if a lot of the fighters at 10th Planet sort of have a similar story to you, or is everyone's reason for fighting sort of unique?
I feel like everyone's reason for fighting is unique. So when I was growing up in wrestling, that was like the early stages of the UFC, like back when people called it human cockfighting, and it was like something you just didn't do.
Yeah.
There was no money. This is kind of like when Andrew was fighting too. He fought in the UFC like when it was first kind of beginning. So nowadays you're seeing, kids as young as like 6, 7 starting to get into like jujitsu and fighting, whereas when I was a kid that wasn't really an option. So people now, especially at 10th Planet, it's like little Austin Hines. You
Yeah,
had him on the
fighting
podcast.
since he was 4.
Yeah, that's what you're seeing these days. Like these people like know this is what they want to do, and it's like they didn't kind of fall into it. Like they knew this is what they want to do. So I feel like it's kind of a mixed batch. There's people like me who kind of just were living their own life and then kind of stumbled upon it, and then there's people now too where it's like they see how much this sport has grown. They're like, I want to do that. So
It's funny that you make that comment too, because in going back to the gladiator question I asked you, it's not really new in a way.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
it's sort of something that we've always been doing, even like back in the days of hunter gatherers. Like I
Yeah,
don't know if they
I mean-
were fighting each other, but like in order to find food, like they were going out and hunting. We
Yeah.
had gladiators, and so it's like it's new. Maybe the format is new. Maybe
Yeah.
titling it UFC or MMA or whatever the thing is new.
Yeah.
But it's not really new either. It's sort of
No.
something that we've been doing since our existence.
100%. And before the UFC, there were fights. It kind of got really big in Japan with a league called Pride, and that's where like a lot of the biggest fighters like Shogun Hua, Rampage Jackson, Wanderlei Silva, Anderson Silva, like a lot of the biggest names started in Japan in Pride, and they're performing in front of 80,000 people in these like super domes. So like the UFC is only 30 years old, but like you said, fighting's been around forever, and people love watching violence. So it's not new in the aspect of the broad scheme of things, but just like the UFC in America was definitely like hated on for a long period of time.
Last night I watched your fight against Ty Mickens.
Yep.
When you're what's going through your head when you're walking into a fight, you're taking off your clothes, they check you to make sure you don't have any, I'm assuming like weapons or anything on you. Before you step into the stage, is it blank? Is it excitement, adrenaline, nervousness? Like what's it like when you're walking into an actual fight versus when you're, going to train at 10th Planet as an example?
Yeah, I mean, everyone's going to have a different answer to this, but like even for sparring days at the gym, like I get a little nervous just because, especially at 10th Planet, I'm training with such high level guys that there's always the potential of getting hurt. But obviously going into an actual fight with all your friends and family there, like the intensity is heightened. So I personally get like really nervous, and I try to like do breathing exercises, and I acknowledge the thoughts going through my head, like this is just my body getting me ready for what's about to happen. I've trained hard for this, like I'm ready. But like, I mean, on the inside, you're kind of freaking out at the same time because like you're like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, because like in the back you're warming up and you're just like going all over like all these different possibilities that could happen, and I personally don't like the warm up. I don't like the walk to cage. Like it's scary to me, but I think you should do the things you fear. But then once I'm in the cage and the door is shut and it's going, it's just like, oh, this feels familiar. Like this is what I do every day. So it's just the calming the brain down before doing it is the real fight for me. And then once I'm in there, it's like, oh, this is what I do.
Dude, such an honest answer. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say any fighter who says they don't get nervous is lying. There are some people out there who don't get nervous, I guess, but like I'm nervous as fuck when I go fight, so that's just my experience.
And then when you're in there and you are fighting someone, Where's your mindset then? Because as I was watching the fight, I'm like, man, these guys, both of you, are so like tuned in,
Yeah.
and is there anything going through your head, or is it
No.
more?
It's a fucking blur. Like, you go through, like, that fight, it felt like it happened in 30 seconds.
It's
It's
20
just,
minutes, my friend.
yeah, no, exactly. It's crazy. Like, it all happens so fast, and you don't have room to think. And that's why you train, is because when you're training, you're thinking, you're doing these repetitive things over and over and over again. So when the time comes to compete, it's second nature. It's like riding a bike. So when you're in the cage and that first punch is thrown, it's just like it's just happening. You're not thinking. So there's, yeah, definitely not a lot of thought going on during that.
Are you good at reading people?
Very good at reading people. And I think I've always kind of been good at reading people. And then when I was trained in sales, that just helped a lot with like the psychological aspect of it as well.
How do you think you develop that skill?
Um, I think reading people is kind of one of those things you're born with. It can be refined, but I feel like kind of one of those things, like either you have it or you don't, and then you can learn it, but it's different when it's just like intuitive. Like you just can read people just naturally.
How do you use that when you're in the cage fight, or not even in the cage? Anytime you're fighting someone,
Yeah.
How do you use that?
A lot of fighting is getting tells from people. It's like, if I do this, they do this, so I'm gonna do this to set up this next thing. It's chess in a way. So you go in there, you're like, oh, when I throw my jab, his right hand goes down, so I'm gonna fake my jab and then throw a hook or something like that. So it's a lot of these small reads on your opponent that happen in a matter of milliseconds. So the whole time you're reading them and looking for openings.
Back in 2020, I think it was, you broke your foot. Was that fighting related?
It was.
Tell us the
That
story.
so 2020 is when I first started training MMA, and you just don't really know what you're doing until you know what you're doing. And I threw a teep kick, which is kind of just like a straight kick with your foot, and I kicked my teammate's elbow in training, and immediately knew I broke my foot. So that happened.
What happened to his elbow?
His elbow was fine. It was like nothing happened. I've been injury prone my whole life. I've had a whole slew of injuries. I've broken like every bone you could break. I've had multiple surgeries. I've had stitches. I've had concussions. So getting hurt is nothing new to me. It's part of what I do.
I'm going to put you in a very difficult position to ask you to be a comedian for a moment. What was your funniest injury?
Probably in 8th grade in PE, it was icy outside, and they were having us do like the mile outside. And I was running, and there was a curb, and I was gonna jump off the curb and try to click my heels like a leprechaun. And I went to do it, and I hit like a patch of ice, and I slipped and broke my wrist. And I was like, I'm a fucking idiot. My mom's gonna be so mad at me.
Dude, I was I don't know how old I was, maybe 14 or 15, but I was going to make some hamburgers, and I was just using those frozen patties, and for some reason I thought I had these two patties that I was trying to separate, and instead of just like banging them against the counter or defrosting them or something, I decided to use a steak knife to try to separate them. So I'm holding these two patties in my hand with a steak knife like this,
Yeah.
and I get through the patties, and then I cut through all the way down to the bone, this part of my hand.
Yeah.
And that also was just one of those injuries where I was like,
I'm an idiot. What's
what,
wrong
what
with
am
me?
I thinking?
Yeah, there was no thought put into that. Like, yeah, I mean, I'd say breaking my foot was another one where I was just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
Where'd the nickname of Thep the Charm come from?
So my original rap name was Admiral, and that kind of came from in college. I like to have a good time, and there was a cheap bottle of rum called Admiral Nelson that my last name's Nelson, so, and it was cheap, so I would get one of those and I would drink it, and then I would become the Admiral. It was kind of this college lore of like, oh, the Admiral's here, just acting wild. So I kind of rolled with that, and I was the Admiral for the first portion of my music career, and then when I started to like want to take it more seriously, I was like, all right, I need to change this up. I don't want to have this be like a joke anymore. So I kind of just played on my appearance, and I have red hair, and so I was like, something with leprechaun maybe, and I don't know, Lep the Charm just kind of came to me, I guess. And when I decided to commit to that and do that, I actually got Lep tattooed on my hand, and I got like a 4-leaf clover with music notes behind my ears, and I was like, I'm fully in this thing now.
Before Tom Brady was known by anyone, I like to say I was the original GOAT because we had this house party and there is a guy that lit a cigarette in the family room. And I asked him, I was like, hey, would you mind just like going on the porch or like anywhere else other than the family room to smoke your cigarette? And he's like, no, dude, fuck you. And I was like, all right.
What?
Who are you? Like,
Yeah.
who invited you? And
Yeah.
so he was one of my roommate's friends. So I went to find my roommate, and he was down in his bedroom with a lady doing their thing. And so I was like, fuck. So he's busy. I'm not going to get him out here. So the only idea that drunken David had to get this guy to smoke a cigarette was to go up to him, ask him one more time to step onto the porch. He said no. So I walked to the end of the hallway and did a full on sprint and then jumped into the air and hit him with my head as hard as I could. And I hit him right in the nose. The guy's nose is bleeding. He drops his cigarette. He's like, oh, why would you do that? He goes running out, never saw the guy again, got his cigarette, threw it in the sink, and then everyone the rest of the night called me the GOAT.
That's amazing.
And then in 2021, you got a full labral tear?
Yeah, so
Where'd that come from?
that I think was just like wear and tear over time. So actually, that one was on my right shoulder. I tore my left labrum in college and had gotten surgery at that time, but it was way more minor. That was just like cleanup. I was only out for like 2-3 months. This one I think was just like wear and tear over time. It actually was at its worst going into my first fight. So during fight camp, my shoulder was just popping in and out of socket the whole time. So for the last like 3 weeks, maybe month of my fight camp, I didn't grapple at all. Like I was just kind of like hitting pads and striking. Surprisingly enough, I ended up knocking the guy out with my torn shoulder, so that's kind of cool. And then I went and got the MRI and everything, and the surgeon was like, it looks like you've been in a car crash because your shoulder is just destroyed. It was a 360-degree labral tear. There's no like medical literature on that kind of injury, except for like Drew Brees, the quarterback, had a 330-degree tear, but mine was like completely off the bone. So the plan for the surgery was he was going to go in, give me 3 to 5 anchors, which are just like sutures, which just basically attach the labrum back onto the bone. And once he got in there, he realized the damage was way more extensive than what he originally thought. So I have 10 anchors in my right shoulder holding my labrum onto the bone. And like just one of these anchors can literally hold up a car. So I have 10 of them. So I basically have a bionic shoulder at this point. So that was a full year recovery. There was a lot of like ups and downs and doubt because I was told by the surgeon, like, if I even have like, if I'm able to just live a normal life with this kind of injury and this kind of surgery, then that's a win. But I was lucky to be able to build it back up and compete again. So that's super exciting.
And you're not living a normal life.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, it's insane that I can still fight with that kind of injury. And I got to credit a lot to the surgeon who did a great job. And also one of my best friends, Trevor Merritt, is the one who did my physical therapy. He's actually my strength coach out here, one of the friends I visited before I moved here. And he was with me in the gym every single day, going through the ups and downs with me. And he got me back to competing, and he was at my first fight. And there's like a vivid memory I have because when you're warming up, you're up above the cage. And I remember about to go down to my fight. I see all my friends over here like drinking, having a good time, and then Trevor's kind of like separated from the group, and he's just like locked in on me, and I was like, we're in this together right now. Like he was with me through the whole thing, so that was a pretty cool moment going into that fight.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
Dude, so many injuries. That's crazy.
Oh yeah, no, I mean,
and what's crazy is like you're in fantastic shape, my friend.
yeah,
Like,
I mean it's amazing I can even walk. Like I've had surgery on both shoulders. I broke my collarbone. I chopped these 2 fingers off when I was a kid. Broke
there a
my
scar?
wrist. Yeah, you can see like the little like Y right
little one,
there,
yeah.
and like a little like line right there. Broken my right foot twice. Broken my fingers. Probably up to 50 stitches. I got 10 stitches on my head. I got 6 over my eye. I got 22 in my right leg. I've been through the gauntlet, and it's amazing that like I can still perform, let alone walk and live a normal life.
How'd you chop your fingers off?
So that was an interesting story. My parents were out of town, and my dad's parents were watching me, and they're at like some party or like family gathering or something, and I was 2 years old, and I was just like crawling around unsupervised, and there was like an exercise bike there, and I like put my hand on the sprocket where like the chain is, and I just like pedaled it or something like that, and they like got caught in the sprocket, and like when you're that young, your bones are still a little bit soft, so it just sliced right into it, and it was like kind of just like hanging off by like tendons and ligaments, and they sewed those puppies back on. So
That's wild.
yeah,
Do you remember that?
I don't remember the actual injury, and I mean I was 2, but I do
Oh,
remember like being in the hospital and just like all the white coats around me. I have like that kind of little bit of memory from that experience.
can you
So
imagine being 2 years old and seeing like your fingers just hanging by?
that's probably why it's blocked on my memory, because it was probably very traumatic at the time, I would guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you and Trevor meet?
So I went to a junior high called Stall, and he went to like our rival junior high, Blue. So we kind of knew each other because we played against each other in sports growing up, and then we ended up going to the same high school, and we became best friends in high school. We hung out all the time, played football together, all that stuff, and then kind of went our separate ways in college. Still kept in contact every time we were back home. We'd hang out, but he moved here maybe a year before I did, and then yeah, came visit him, and then the second I moved here, we were kind of like inseparable. Like we're always training together. He's always gearing me up for my fight. So yeah, I've known him for a long time.
What is it about the two of you that made you guys such good friends?
We're just very similar people. You know, we have the same goals and lived a pretty similar life. He's very very smart, and he's very like science driven, and I'm like the complete opposite. I'm not a science person. So he went to college, he ended up getting his master's, and I don't know, I don't know what he did, basically athletic training. So he went to Eastern Washington and then Central. And so he was like working with the football team, taping ankles, doing all that stuff, and then he ended up working for the Seahawks for a year or two before he moved out here, and now he has his own business, training people and doing all that stuff. So
What's his business?
he's mostly a trainer, but he has the skills of doing some like physical therapy stuff as well. He does like the electro acupuncture stuff as well, but I'd say primarily like a strength coach.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would highly recommend anybody go check him out because he's a wizard.
How do you find him?
Trevor Merritt, I think his business is Merit Made or Merit Movement or something like that. But he's got an app, and actually, let me say this right so people can actually find him. His app is Merit Made Human Performance.
Perfect.
So you can book appointments with him through that, buy packages. He does all sorts of stuff, so I would highly recommend.
All right. Sort of going to throw a curveball at you here, but what book, movie, or TV character is most like you, and why?
Book, movie, or TV character? I would say if you asked me this question 5 years ago, I would have compared myself more to like Mac Miller because he was my biggest influence in music. He was like a big part of my life in junior high and high school. Just his music had such a big impact on me, and I drew a lot of inspiration from him. But nowadays, I'd probably compare myself fighting wise more to like Michael Chandler. I don't know if you know who that is.
Mm-mm.
We have a similar body type. We fight in the same weight class, and we both love doing the strength conditioning and living this like athlete lifestyle. So I'd probably say these days more like Michael Chandler.
Okay, I'll have to look him up later.
Yeah, he's a beast.
When we talked on the phone, we talked about food a little bit.
Yep.
Remind me, help me segue into this.
Yeah, so the thing I kind of brought up was just how fucked up the American diet is and how little knowledge people have of what they're putting into the body and how much impact it's having on their mental health and physical health. Yeah, it's just like it's super messed up, the American diet. So
How'd this get on your radar?
it really started when I started fighting, and kind of, when you have to lose 30 pounds, you really start to look in what you're putting into your body. So I really started at that time, like actually reading nutrition labels and like seeing the things that are in the food I'm eating and understanding what I'm putting in my body and looking at food more like fuel instead of just like something to fill me up. So definitely fighting is what changed my view on food.
What's your diet like these days versus what it was like before you started fighting?
I mean, before I started fighting, like in college, I'd eat frozen pizzas and drink beer
Mm.
and, eat whatever. Like there was no thought behind it. I was just eating whatever and it was fine. But now, I eat the same stuff every single day for every single meal. And like, every now and then I'll like have pizza. I'm not like a saint. I don't,
Right.
I'm not super regimented, except for in fight camp. I'll be super disciplined, but yeah, I mean, I eat the same stuff every single day, and I do notice now, like once you start eating clean and you start feeling good, when you do go back to those things you were eating before, like you really like you'll wake up and your body just feels like, and you're like inflamed, your joints hurt, like it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. To your point, like if I eat a quote unquote bad meal, like you just don't feel good afterwards.
Yeah.
And I don't like feeling like that anymore. I feel
No.
tired,
Yeah.
my stomach feels bloated,
Mm-hmm.
I feel slow,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I can't think as
Like
well.
mental fog, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because growing up, like all the way through high school, my breakfast was Fruity Pebbles. Like that was just I was just starting my day with like a massive sugar bomb, just like spiking my blood sugar and then just going about my day like that. And at the time when you're young, it doesn't really affect you as much. But now these days, now that I'm 30, like if I have a bad meal or something like that, it's gonna impact me, like my mental clarity, and then like training the next day, I'll be more lethargic. Like maybe my shoulders or my knees will hurt more. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it makes a big difference.
Have you ever heard of the parable of the two people that had a picnic next to the river? Does this ring a bell?
I don't think so.
I have a story to tell you.
Let's do it.
So two friends decided to have a picnic next to the river, and they head out there. And as they're unfolding their blanket and unpacking their picnic basket with tuna fish sandwiches and lemonade, whatever, they hear yelling and screaming and splashing. And they turn around and look at the river, and there's a kid that's drowning in the water. So they naturally run over to the river. They jump in and they get the kid out of the water. And as they're making sure the little dude is okay, they hear more splashing and screaming. And they look, and there's a second kid drowning in the water. So they jump back into the river. They get her out, and as they're getting her out, there's a third kid and a fourth and a fifth and a sixth. And one of the two friends is starting to think like, man, we have to get these kids out of the water, but I'm getting tired. I don't know how I'm going to be able to keep up with this. I don't know how many more kids I'll be able to save, but like, we can't let these kids drown either. And so as he's in this moment of despair, the situation gets even worse because his friend gets out of the river and starts walking away. And so the guy that's still in the water yells at the other friend and says, hey, where are you going? And the friend says, I'm going to go upstream and kick the dude's ass that's throwing all these kids in the water. So when you think about the American diet, what's a way that you would go upstream with it to be healthier?
I mean, the biggest thing is just eating whole foods, natural foods that are grown in the earth or, living things. Um, Not processed foods, microwavable meals. Like, I eat chicken, sweet potatoes, ground beef, steak, stuff that, like, is grown in the ground, like real things. I'd say that's a good starting point. And then once you kind of have that good base, you can kind of venture more into, like, the supplements to fill in the gaps and stuff like that. But the biggest thing is just eating whole foods. That's the biggest thing I'd say. And then just reading nutritional labels, it's insane. Like you look at the back of some of these like cereals or stuff like that, and you just see food dyes and chemicals. Like if you have a paragraph on the back of what you're eating, that's probably not something you want to put in your body. And it's crazy too because like say you're looking at Fruit Loops, the Fruit Loops in America versus the Fruit Loops in Europe, technically the same product, but the Fruit Loops in Europe have like a quarter of the ingredients because like there's so many things that are banned over there that are allowed to be put in our food over here.
This is true.
This is a fact.
That's crazy.
hmm Like food dyes and stuff like that in Europe are banned. A lot of like preservatives and stuff like that are banned. Like one thing I can think of off the top of my head in like shredded cheese, there's a thing called neomycin, I believe, which is literally like an ointment that you get at the doctor for like your eyes or something. It's like neosporin. It's like the active ingredient like neosporin, and they put it in frozen or shredded cheese as like a preservative. So that's just one example of many of this like crazy stuff they're putting in our food so it doesn't like mold fast.
people like yourself and like me, we care about our diet and what we put in our body and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think the average? Well, no, I don't want to say we're above average. I don't like how I phrase that. Do you think people care about this? Do you
No.
think people think about it?
I don't think so. I mean, I think the biggest thing is like not people aren't like actively going against it. I just think it's a lack of knowledge. People just don't know what they're putting in their body is bad, and a lot of people don't know how good they can feel if they were just to switch that little thing.
Do you think you would ever do try to put yourself in some sort of position where you could help this issue?
I mean, I do it in my own personal life. Like when I see someone like eating something, I'll just like look at the nutrition facts and I'll just kind of like guilt them into being like, "What are you putting in your body right now?"
Yeah.
Like, so in my own personal life, I kind of try to hold my friends accountable. Like they're gonna do what they want to do, but like I just kind of try to plant those seeds to like try to get them to look at what they're putting into their body. But most people just don't know. Like a lot of times there's a product that's like marketed as healthy, but then you look at the nutrition facts and it's a freaking paragraph of like 30 different chemicals. It's insane.
Yeah. I laughed because just last night I was rewatching. Did you watch Friends at all growing up?
Not growing up, my girlfriend loves Friends, so like we definitely have it on the TV a lot at our house.
Do you happen to? It's crazy that we're talking about this because last night I was watching a few reruns, and do you happen to recall the episode where Rachel is living with Joey and her sister needs a place to stay, and so she moves in with them, and then Joey's complaining to Rachel later about how he's like, "Dude, I'm trying to eat this pizza, and your sister walked into the room, and she's like, pizza, a second on the lips, forever on the hips," and he's like, "Let me just eat my pizza in peace."
Yeah, I haven't seen that one, but that sounds about right. And the thing is with that too, like you look at the diet they have out in like Italy where they're eating a lot of pastas and pizzas, but a lot of people out there are still like, moderately thin and in good shape. And it's because the pizzas and the pasta they're eating are coming from like real natural ingredients, whereas like the pizzas in America are just filled with all sorts of crap like fillers, chemicals, preservatives, all that stuff. So that's why there's a jiu-jitsu athlete named Mikey Musumeci, and he's like unbelievably shredded, but like his diet is pizza and pasta, and that is all he eats. And you're just like, how is this possible? And it's because he gets his ingredients imported from Italy, and he's making them with like real actual food. So it's like you can eat the things you like as long as the ingredients going into it are like real food.
Have you ever thought about living somewhere outside of the U.S. at some point?
I would love to try. I mean, I haven't really traveled. Like, I've never been to Europe. I've been to Canada and Mexico, both as a kid. So I definitely would want to travel and like see places before I would consider living there. But I would definitely love to go to Europe or like go to Italy and just like see that lifestyle and live there for a bit just to get a feel for how they do things over there.
Yeah. My sister just got a new job, and they do their new hire training in Italy, and so she got to.
So cool.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
When she told me that, it's like, what? Who hired you? What is this company? But she raved about the food when she got back.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was easily high. Like she liked the architecture, and of course, there's some other things that she enjoyed too. But she's just like, this is like the best pasta.
Well, I've heard from multiple people, like you go to Europe and like you eat croissants for breakfast, and then you eat pasta and you eat pizza, but then you don't feel like shit afterwards. Like I've heard so many people say that, and like that's the prime example of like that's because the food over there is actually real food. You know what I mean? Like you can eat what you want over there and not feel like crap.
When you do eat pizza, what's your go-to?
Pepperoni all day.
From where?
From where? So when I first moved here, I was going to Marco's all the time. I don't know if you've tried Marco's.
Not yet.
But their thin crust is fantastic. I had it so much I kind of burnt myself out a little bit. And then probably a month or two ago, my friends ordered Jets pizza, like the deep dish one, and I tried it. I was like, "Oh, this is it right here." So the last like month or two, when we do our pizza nights, we go with Jets.
Did Austin ever tell you about the pizza that he had in the back of his truck for about a month?
No.
So I forget where he got it from. It wasn't either the two places you just mentioned, but him and his friends went out for pizza and they had all but one slice. And so he threw the slice in his back seat and he sort of forgot about it for a couple of weeks. And then at one point he was cleaning out his truck and he found this pizza. And what was mind blowing to him was that it hadn't started molding. It hadn't started. It basically looked the same. And when he told me about this, I was like, "Do you still have it in your truck?" And he said, "Yeah." And so after we ended the episode, I walked out to his truck with him, and he showed it to me. And sure enough, dude, like this thing was 40 days old.
Yeah.
And it's like you could tell it was old.
Yeah.
But if I guessed, I would have said it was like 3 days old, or maybe.
That's not natural. That's another perfect example of like what we're putting in our body. Like that should not happen. That thing should be like covered in mold and like wasting away to nothing. Another thing I've seen too is there's a guy who does an experiment. It was like on TikTok or something like that. But you know those like drumsticks, like the ice cream cones that you can buy from the grocery store?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he took one of those and he just kind of left it out. And I think at this point it's been out for like 9 months. And it's like melted, obviously, but there is zero evidence of any mold or anything like that. And it's just like, how is that possible? Like, what are we eating?
Oh boy.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. I mean, the more you look into it, you're like, how are they getting away with this? Like, how is this allowed?
You see this guy second from the left in the black shirt.
This one right here? Yeah.
That's my boy Tyler.
Okay.
He moved to Austin about 3 months ago. And maybe 1 month ago, I went over to his place just to hang out for a little bit. And at one point, he had mentioned to me that he hadn't been to the grocery store since he had been in town. And like I heard it, but it didn't really like
Register at the time.
register.
Yeah.
And so then at one point, I go to his fridge to grab a drink. I open the fridge, and the only thing that's in it is some sparkly waters, maybe a case of beer, and like tortillas. And I was like, "Oh, you've literally been eating out for the last 2 months." And
Yeah.
he said, "Yeah." It's like, dude, you're a healthy guy. Like, get to a grocery store already. Go to HEB. There's one 5 minutes down the road.
Yeah.
And he's a very healthy guy. He's in great shape. But it also like blew my mind that he had been eating out every single one of his meals for like 60 days straight. I was like, "Stop
Is he like
that."
eating like fast food or like going to restaurants? And
It's
eating?
mostly taco trucks. This guy's a taco fiend.
Yeah.
He has had tacos almost every meal for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
And even when we work out together and afterwards, sometimes we'll grab food. I'll be like, "What do you want to grab tonight?" I always ask. And even though I already know the answer, he's like, "Let's go back to that food truck."
Well, honestly, like depending on the food truck you go to or the restaurant you eat at, some restaurants are like mindful about what they're cooking with and what ingredients they use. So it's totally possible like what the tacos he's eating and stuff are like actually like good ingredients. Like they're not cooking it in like canola oil and stuff like that. They're like maybe using butter or like beef tallow to cook it in. So maybe that's why he's still in good shape, but I mean, he could just have great genetics too.
Probably a mix of both. This guy has amazing genetics. I mean, before he moved here, he took like I think he said 6 months off from working out just because he was so busy moving from New York to Austin, had some other stuff going on. He's part of a band called The Broken View, and they're getting a new album. So there is just a lot of life happening.
Mm-hmm.
And even when he moved here, he was still jacked.
Yeah.
Dude, I hate you. Like,
Yeah.
how do you look this good
Yeah.
and you haven't been in the Iron Church for 4 months?
Yeah.
This is insane.
It's a real thing. I don't know if you know who DK Metcalf is, but he's a receiver for the Seahawks. He's like an absolute specimen of a human. He's like 6'4" and just shredded out of his mind. And people always ask him what he eats, and like a large portion of his diet is candy. Like he eats like bags of candy every day. He'll drink coffee and then have like one real meal a day, but then still look like this like Greek god. So genetics are a real thing.
Yeah,
for sure.
some people just they
got it.
They got it.
Yeah.
How do you, random question, but how do you prepare your sweet potatoes? Because I love sweet potatoes.
Oh yeah.
But I also am a little burnt out on them, so I haven't been buying them recently.
Yeah. I eat them every single day, and I've put on a few people onto my recipe at my job. So, because they'll like smell, I'm like, dude, that smells so good. I'll like let them try it. They're like, oh my God, I've never had sweet potatoes this good. So I'll peel them, I'll cut them in half, and then I'll dice them up. And then I put them in a bowl. I put avocado oil on it, and then I'll put pepper. This seasoning called chupacabra that I got from HEB is like a spicy seasoning, and then I'll put cinnamon on them, and then I'll toss it, and then I'll put it in the oven for 30 minutes at 425, and it's just on point. Like I never get tired of them.
I'm gonna do that.
You should do it.
after Christmas when I get back.
Be generous with the seasoning. That's
Okay.
what I would say.
All right.
Yeah.
I had this. I'm not a vegetarian, but someone turned me onto this recipe that's basically like sweet potatoes, mushrooms, onions. I'm forgetting the fourth vegetable, but very similar thing where you just add a ton of spices, throw that in the oven,
Yep.
cook some rice, put it all together, and then I make this sauce that's a mix of sriracha, honey, and oh man, what's the sauce that they give you when you go to a sushi restaurant and you order the like the deep fried vegetable dish? I'm blanking so
It's
hard
not soy
right now.
sauce, is it? Like,
It's not soy sauce. It's like a sweet soy sauce basically.
yeah.
Um
Mm.
I can see the bottle. It's in my pantry right now. But yeah, you mix that with sriracha and honey and then drizzle over the whole thing.
It's not
and
Worcester, is it?
no, but I'll give you a hack with Worcester. You mix that with your cheeseburger condiments.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I do that.
Fire.
Oh yeah, smash burgers.
You already know.
Gotta do it.
Yeah.
Gotta do it.
What's it like being a security guard at the mothership?
It's surreal. It's super crazy. So the way that worked out is, I was working this job at the flooring store I was at, and it was an inside sales job. So I was at this place like 8-9 hours a day, just like sitting at a desk, and it was killing me. Like I'm meant to move around. Like I'm not a stationary person. So I was like working this job, and then I would go train and fight, and it was just really sucking the life out of me. So I had enough money saved up at the time where I was like, I'm going to quit this job and I'm just going to figure it out from there. So I put in like a 3-week notice, and then the Wednesday before the Friday, that was supposed to be my last day at that place, my buddy Zach Moore, who works in the mothership and I train with, hit me up. He's like, hey, what's your job situation like? We're looking for more security guards at the mothership. And it was just like the universe just like telling me like, this is the right thing to do. You're on the right path. So kind of just fell into the mothership thing, and it's so awesome because we work at night, so I get to train during the day, do what I want during the day, get rest, and then at the mothership, all of my security coworkers are my teammates, my friends. So I'm just like doing this awesome job, getting to watch the best comedy in the world, interact with all these cool people, network in a way with all these celebrities and comics, and also just be alongside my buddies. Like it just all worked out so well. It's crazy.
Have you guys had a breakup in much of anything, or are people there? I haven't been to the mothership yet, which is killing me. Me and Tyler and a couple other of our friends are just like, why have we not gone yet?
You gotta go.
But I would, in my imagination, I imagine like people for the most part are pretty well behaved. So is the security more of just like it's there if we need it, or are you guys pretty actively like taking care of business?
We're pretty active. A lot of people get extremely hammered and
I can see
come
that.
there. Most of what we do is, so heckling isn't allowed in the showroom, which is where like you yell out while a comedian's doing a thing and you kind of break up their mojo.
Yep.
So we'll kind of be in the room watching out for that and like looking out for like loud table talk just to keep things in order for the most part. So oftentimes someone will be super hammered. They'll be like yelling out. We'll be like, hey, please don't do that. Keep it down. And then they do it again, and you kind of like escalate your warning a bit, like, hey, I already told you once. If you keep doing this, we're going to have to ask you to leave. And then they'll keep doing it, and then you ask them to leave, and oftentimes they'll cooperate and leave, stumble out of the place. But there's times, too, where they don't want to leave, and that's why we have Austin police on site, because we can be like, hey, you can either come with us, or you can go sit in a jail cell for the night. And that tends to work out pretty well in our favor. But we've only had a few like actual like physical altercations in the club. A lot of the physical things that happen are on the outside of the club because there's a large homeless population on 6th Street.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'd say majority of people do behave, but like every night there's at least one person that gets a little too drunk, and you gotta get him out of the club. So
There's always that guy.
always,
Or gal.
every single show. But I give them grace because for a lot of people, coming to the mothership is like the Super Bowl. It's like this thing that they've had planned for months. They flew in from a different state. They're like super excited about it, so they go out beforehand, have a few drinks,
Yep.
drink a little too much, and then get there. And then in the showroom, we have a 2-drink minimum. So they just keep drinking and then get a little too drunk. So I can't blame them. They're just excited to be there. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true. I was in Chicago recently, and on the flight back, I asked the guy next to me if he lived in Austin or if he was just visiting, and he said, "We're just visiting. I'm going there for a bachelor party." And I was like, "Oh, what do you guys got lined up to do?" And he listed off a few items, but then he was like, "Dude, we're going to the mothership." Like he was so excited to talk about it, and it's dude, that's got to be a crazy feeling for Joe to like have this, or for anyone that has some sort of destination spot where people are traveling from all over the world to visit and they're like so stoked for it.
Yeah.
That must feel great.
Well, it's crazy. I mean, the club is open 7 days a week, and every single show is sold out. So every single night we have 500 people circulating in and out of that club. So I mean, and I think his whole intention of that place was just to have a place in his hometown that he could go do his thing,
Yeah.
have his buddies come through. It's like cool, like hangout spot for him. And now it's kind of just become the mecca of comedy. It's like the place where all the biggest names are coming to. Like comics are literally uprooting their lives and moving here
Yep.
just to be here. So it's a pretty cool thing.
Who's been the funniest show that you've got to see?
My
Who made you just damn near in tears laughing?
My favorite comedian I've seen is Harlan Williams. I don't know if you know who that is.
Yes.
Yeah, he is so good. Every time he's there, I'll work the room every time. Like his set never gets old. And even on my nights off when he's in town, I'll like either grab a group of friends or just go with my girl and we'll just go watch him because he's so good.
If you were to you heard of Banana Phone? That's
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have friends that keep trying to get me to go to that. I haven't done it yet, but I've heard it's hilarious.
What do you think you would do? You have a minute on stage.
Oh, God.
What's the premise of your bit?
I would probably bomb. Like that's just not what I'm at. I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of comedians, they do their best stuff when they're just talking about their life and they're not forcing it. I think I'd probably just try to find something that happened in my life and try to make it funny, I would say. But yeah, I'm not a comedian. I mean, I feel like I'd like to think I'm funny in life, but putting together a bit and getting on that stage in front of a bunch of people I don't know, takes a special person to be able to do that. So I don't even want to try to act like I could do what they do.
Yeah. Dude, one thing I really admire about you, this might be strange to say out loud, but when I was going through your Instagram and saw you performing on stage, but also you had your shirt off, I was like, dude, look at the stud.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to get on stage and rap or sing or do any kind of performance, whether it's playing an instrument, comedy, like, that takes some guts.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you're a super confident dude.
Yeah.
Where does that come from, do you think?
I think a lot of it comes from not being confident. You know?
I'm the least confident person you've ever met.
Yeah, it's like I said earlier, it's like I think you should do the things that scare you. That's where you'll grow the most. So I'm like, this thing terrifies me. I'm gonna go do it and like take my shirt off and show the world like I'm not afraid to do this. You know what I mean? So I think it comes from being the little kid who was like bullied for having red hair and kind of like a defense mechanism in a way.
Is that something people get bullied for?
Oh, 100%.
Why?
Gingers? It's just like a thing. I don't know. Like,
Huh.
there's not a lot of redheads out there, so like it's an easy target, I would say.
That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I had any redheads in my circle. And
Yeah.
when I say my circle, I mean like my school as a whole.
Yeah.
Like even people I didn't know.
We're going extinct,
Huh.
they say.
What's your heritage? What are you?
Swedish. My everyone assumes Irish, but I'm actually not Irish at all. My grandfather, so my great grandfather actually migrated here from Sweden. And my last name actually should be Nilsson, Nilsson.
Uh-huh.
But when he migrated here from Sweden, he like changed his name to like Americanize himself. So, and then my mom's side of the family came over here on the Mayflower.
What's your favorite tattoo?
Favorite tattoo, I have a very large piece of Odin on my entire right
yeah.
leg that I actually got here in Texas. I'd say that was probably my favorite one.
Why?
The artwork just turned out so sick.
Was most of it on the artist, or did you come up with the design yourself?
I like to give artists their leeway. Being an artist myself, I don't like to be like put in this box. So I kind of like to just give them a concept and then just allow them the free space to do their own thing with it. So I kind of just like gave him an idea of what I wanted and then just let him do his thing. And then I showed up and he had the design. I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, let's do it right now.
Yeah.
Put it on me forever.
Dude, I don't have any tattoos. I've always wanted them, and now at 37 years old, I'm probably not going to get any because like if it was to happen, it would have happened by now.
Yeah.
But there is that like apprehension of like I don't know what I would want on me forever. It's such a commitment.
Yeah, everyone has that, and I got my first tattoo. It's this cross right here, and I'm not really a religious person. Like I kind of grew up religious, but I kind of got this tattoo as a way to like so my parents would like let me do it, you know what I mean? Like it's kind of a tattoo that's not like offensive or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I got this tattoo like right when I turned 18, and then I got it, came home, my parents were like, "All right, so you're done, right? No more tattoos." I was like, "Yeah, for sure." And now I'm just like covered in them.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. And I feel like with tattoos, it's like the first one is always the one where like you want to put this thought into it, like it's got to mean something. And I have so many tattoos on me that like don't mean anything. I just like how they look, like the artwork of it. And I feel like once I got my first one, it was kind of just like ripping the Band-Aid off, and now it's just like I'll get anything.
Yeah. That's sort of like my sister. She gets a new tattoo every time she visits a different state, and she's running out of room.
Yep.
And I think she's been to close to 30. So I'm like, you got 20 plus to go, not a lot of room left. What are you doing here?
Yeah.
And I don't remember what her answer was, but she's just like, I'm just rolling with it.
I think it's cool. I think tattoos can be more of a story than anything. Like, yes, it's a cool piece of art, but like, what were you doing when you got it? You know what I mean?
What tattoo, when you look at it, has the most memorable story to you?
Probably the lap one. Just that was kind of like I'm committing to this music thing. Like I've changed my name for this thing, and like I'm committed to it. So I'd probably say that one was pretty cool. But I've gotten like random spur of the moments with friends that like were completely unplanned and stuff like that. So those ones are cool too.
Yeah. If you could fight anybody, dead or alive, who would you want to fight and why?
That's a good question. I feel like getting in there with Conor McGregor would be cool. I feel like that's everyone's dream fight. You know what I mean? Just because he's such a big superstar and he brings so many eyeballs to it, and like the press conference and the lead up of it with all the shit talking going into it would be super fun. And he's just got such a fun style of fighting. I feel like it'd just be a really fun competition.
Who do you think would be the most intimidating person to fight?
Most intimidating person to fight? Probably Francis Ngannou. He was the heavyweight champ in the UFC, and now he's the heavyweight champ in the PFL. And he's just this like absolute specimen of a human. He's like 6'5". He cuts down to 265. He's just this big freak of nature, and like he punches people so hard. Like the way he knocks people out is just terrifying. So I would imagine stepping into the octagon with him would be a little intimidating.
Do you happen to know a guy named Judd Leinhard?
Mm-mm.
He's not a fighter, but he's been mentioned on Rogan several times, and he has some sort of fitness. He's a lot of people in Austin know him, but he goes to my gym, and the first time I saw this guy, he's probably like 6'5", 6'6", pushing like 270, 280, like under 10% body fat. My nickname for him is Goliath.
Yep.
One of the nicest guys I've ever met,
Gentle
as
giant.
most big guys are that
Yeah.
I've met. But dude, if you don't know him, like when you see this guy, like some of the teenagers in the gym have come up to me and they're like, how do I get like Judd? I'm like, well, he's 40 and he's been working out for 20 years. So
Yeah.
that's step one.
And you can't just become 6'5", you know, that's just not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. But dude, he's one of those guys, going back to the genetics thing, where it's just like, I would not want to get in a fight with him.
No.
Even if he doesn't know how to fight. Like, he's just not that kind of guy that you want him to be your friend.
For sure. You want him on your side.
Yeah.
100%.
Where do you see your fighting career going?
I want to take probably, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 more amateur fights, and then get some pro fights under my belt. My goal with fighting was never to be like the UFC champion, and you know, because I started late. I started when I was 26, and it's a young man's game. Most guys are nearing the end of their career when they're 34. So in my eyes, I probably have another good 4 or 5 years left in me. So I want to make the most of that. Like if I make it to the UFC, that's awesome. But my whole goal with fighting is to eventually open my own gym and have the experience and wisdom to be able to teach people and be confident in what I'm teaching them is like actually something that'll work. So
what's a day in the life of Andy look right now?
It's pretty boring, to be honest with you. I wake up, I hang out with my girlfriend and my cats. I
Your cats?
got three
You didn't
cats.
say that. Get out of here. This is a
Ah.
dog podcast. No, I'm
Hey, I love
kidding.
dogs. I love all animals. And the reason I'm a cat person is because both my mom and sister are allergic, so I grew up with cats. So it's just they've kind of been a part of my life forever. Plus, they're also very low maintenance. So with how busy my life is, like I don't have to worry like, hey, if I'm not home for, a few days, my dog's gonna die or, go
Right.
crazy. So that's a big thing too. But yeah, back to a day in the life. I hang out with my cats, hang out with my girlfriend. I'll go lift, I'll go train, come home, eat, recover, and then go work at the mothership. I mean, I pretty much do the same stuff every single day, especially when I'm in fight camp. My life is boring. I mean, I have fun, I enjoy my life, but to the outside looking in, it probably looks boring. But I love what I do. But then when I'm not in fight camp, I'm not as disciplined and focused. I like to go have a beer with friends, go to a concert, go to a bar, watch some fights, stuff like that. So
Yeah. Well, when the day comes, and I'm hoping it's sooner rather than later that we hit up the mothership, I'll definitely hit you up. And
hell yeah,
if you're working, I'll at minimum say hi, and if you're free to just come hang out,
hell yeah.
that'd be fun.
Yeah, I'm there 5 days a week at least, so got a good chance of being there when I'm there. So
Yeah. So you say your life is boring, and I feel like you're probably someone who like enjoys some self-deprecating humor, but you're also like, are you happy?
so happy. Yeah, I love what I'm doing. Like moving to Austin and like taking this big step in my life was like the best thing I could have ever done.
Yeah. 65% of the audience of this podcast is 24 years old or younger, which I was not anticipating, but I love that too. That's
Yeah.
a lot of young people tuning in. If you were to give someone, I don't want to say advice because that's so cliche, but I already said it. So if you were to give someone some advice for like, let's say there's someone listening who's 18, graduated high school, they feel like they should go to college because that's what everyone else is doing or that's what their parents want them to do.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know about life now, what would you say to that portion of the audience if you were to impart some wisdom on them?
Yeah, I would just say don't put too much pressure on yourself. Find something that you love doing and just do that and try to find a way to make money doing it. You know what I mean? And especially these days, like back in the day, like you kind of had to go to college to get a job that like would make it so you could make enough money to, feed your family and live a good life. But these days there's so many different options where you don't have to go to college. Like I mean, with social media and all the different options out there, like don't feel obligated and pressured by society to go do college and put yourself in debt and, try to find your path that way when, just listen to your heart. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Find something that you love doing and then just do that. Don't put too much pressure on yourself.
There is a ton of young entrepreneurs here in Texas,
Hell
or
yeah.
especially in Austin.
Yeah.
There's probably 5, 6, 7 people at my gym I'm thinking of right now who never went the college route. They're running their own business, and it's very different from Sacramento.
Yeah.
When I think of my circle of friends back in Sacramento, I don't know if anyone's running their own business. I think we all sort of went the same path of going to college, got our degree, we're working for company ABC, and that seems to be the dream. But then I got out here to Austin, and it's very different. And
Yeah.
It's very refreshing. And it's
Definitely.
very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you could find someone who's making millions of dollars a year, working some finance hedge fund job, and on the outside looks like they have everything that you'd ever want, but they're the most miserable people. And then I know people who literally live in vans and get to do what they want every day and make no money, who are happier than 90% of the population. So I would say don't let money be the motivator. Just try to I think freedom and being able to do what you want every day should be the motivator.
Is one of those people Walker by chance?
Yes.
Dude.
Yeah.
Funny story. I was taking out my trash one night and parked right out there. There's a guy and he had his van and I was able to, he had both the back doors open and I could tell like this is a very well furnished van.
Yep.
And just my curious nature, I walked up to him. I was like, dude, are you living in this thing? And he's
Hell
like,
yeah.
hell yeah, I am.
Yeah.
And showed me just everything that he had done to furnish the van. And
Yeah.
it for me, man, like I got the studio and I have my dog and he needs someplace bigger than a van to live. So like this for me works, but also like there was a little bit of like, wow,
Yeah.
this is sort of cool that he can
100%.
like his home is mobile
Yep.
and he could go wherever he wants, whenever he wants, and there is
Yeah.
like a freedom to that. That was
Yeah.
sort of awesome.
For sure. Minimal expenses too. Like there's a guy who I work with at the mothership who trains at 10th Planet as well. His name's Sean. He's from Alaska, and when he first moved here, he was living in a van as well, and just kind of built his life around that. So he kind of knew what he wanted to do with his life, and he knew what it took to get there. So it's like, I think that's awesome, you know, like live in that van for a year, live in that van for 2 years, and just chase your dreams, you know, because you don't want to live a life looking back like, what if, you know, like you just settled, you know, you settled into the easy, comfortable life that everyone's living, you know, like why not take that chance, you know, you never know what could come of it.
Yeah.
You could set out on this path with this goal in mind and you're trying your best and it could lead to 10 other things that you never even thought could happen. So I think that's what people should do.
Is there anything that you've thought about doing that you haven't done yet, but you might one day, whether it's living in a van or anything at all that you've sort of imagined?
Who knows? I've never really been a man with a plan. I kind of go kind of go day by day. Like I've always been a dreamer, and I've always not been afraid to try things, try new things, and put myself out there to, you know, take losses and learn from them. So I mean, no, I mean I could see myself in 5 years doing something that I never thought I'd do, just because that's how I've always been. But yeah, I'm always down to try new things and live different lives. So
What's one of your dreams?
right now, my dream is to open a gym eventually. That's the real
Yeah.
dream right there. That's what I want to do. I want to have this place where like-minded people can come together and we can all grow together and focus on the same goal and work towards achieving that together. That's my biggest thing.
You think that'd be here in Austin, or is that to be determined?
To be determined. Most likely back in Washington is where I'll end up, just because that's where most of my family is. That's where most of my girlfriend's family is. So whenever we decide to have some kids, it's definitely nice to have the grandparents around to help raise that kid, because it takes a village. Plus, like the market out here for jujitsu and like MMA gyms is like very saturated. There's gyms everywhere.
Yeah.
Whereas in Washington, it's not nearly as big. So there's like a lot more market opportunity out there to really make an impact.
Did you guys move out to Austin because of 10th Planet, or how'd you land on Austin specifically?
So our biggest motivator was get to somewhere where there's sunshine most of the year.
Yeah.
And I already had 3 buddies living here, which definitely helped. And then on top of that, like the cherry on top was 10th Planet. So it all just kind of made sense. We were kind of in between Arizona and Texas. And then at the time, it was still like during the pandemic. So just seeing like how open and like free it was out here in Texas, that was another like big kicker to coming out here.
Don't go to Arizona.
Yeah, I mean, I got an uncle who lives there, and I don't really have any. I have friends who live there now, but yeah, I don't know. Texas felt right.
When I was driving out here from California, there is a one point where I needed to pull over for gas and let the dog out to use the bathroom and whatnot. And I think we stopped in a city called Flagstaff.
That sounds
Arizona?
right. Yeah, that's a place.
And when we got out of the car, everyone looked like they were just tweaking out of their mind. It was wild.
Yeah.
Like there have not been very many times in life where I fear for my life. And I went to start fueling the car. I hadn't let the dog out yet, and I'm looking around, and everyone looked like they sort of had like an emptiness in their eyeballs.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were just sort of wandering around like in the middle of the street or past the gas station, and it just felt almost post-apocalyptic.
For sure.
And so I ended up just putting the gas handle back in the thing, and
Like,
I was
I'm good. I'm gonna leave.
We're
here.
gonna drive 2 more exits.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
We'll get water and fuel there.
Yeah.
It was wild, dude. And
Yeah.
that's the only other impression I've got of Arizona is I used to have a coworker that lived there, and he just said it was very dusty. Like if you open your door or window, you almost had to vacuum the whole house afterwards, just
Yeah.
because of all the dust that got in. I was like,
Yeah,
dude,
that
you're not
desert
selling
life.
me on this. this
Yeah.
place.
No, I think I made the right choice coming here for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
What else is going on?
Not much, man. I mean, I pretty much do the same stuff every day. Like fighting is the biggest goal in my life right now. So that's what I'm mostly focused on. And if you want to do that, you have to really like pour your whole entire self into that, or else you're gonna get hurt. So right now, my biggest focus is just training, staying healthy, staying disciplined and staying focused on that path right now. And I know if I just put my head down and work for the next 4 or 5 years doing that, I think it'll open up doors for me that'll get me to my end goal.
Yeah, with your job at the mothership coupled with your training at 10th Planet, I could definitely see some sort of unexpected career path coming your way.
Exactly.
Because you're meeting so many people that you
100%.
have no idea who might reach out at some point and be like,
100%.
hey, we're doing this thing. We thought of you. We want you to be involved. And so, yeah, I could imagine that in 2, 3, 4 years, your life might look dramatically different than what it does now. For the better, too, hopefully.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of that, like, I have a cousin. He's a crypto bro. He got into Bitcoin like very, very early and was very successful doing so. And there's crypto conferences all around the world all the time. And there was one in Austin, I want to say back in June, or it might have been August. And when he was out here, it was like, hey, man, we're going to be renting like 10 Airbnbs while we're out here. And one of them's going to be like the media house. And I want you to come be like a security guard for the media house for us. He's like, I'll pay you while you're here. And he ended up paying me like way too much money to do like basically nothing. Like I was at this house like working security, which basically meant I was at the door sitting at a table drinking beer and making sure nobody who wasn't supposed to be there was there. So I mean, opportunities like that, like there's just, I'm on this path right now and like this random opportunity popped up along the way that I never would have expected, and it's just like it's pretty cool how life works like that.
Yeah. Are you a big fan of Mario?
I played Mario Kart and like Super Mario growing up and like Smash Bros and stuff like that. So I would say, I don't know if I'm a big Mario person, but like I've definitely played a lot of the Mario games.
Is that a Mario mushroom on your wrist? I just noticed it like 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, it's so One Up Floor is the company I worked at in Washington. It's like One Up, like the Mario mushroom.
Ah.
So the brand was this mushroom head. So before I left the company, me and she was my boss at the time. Her name's Katie. We went and got this tattoo to kind of like memorialize my time at One Up, and just it's a piece of me. So I got it tattooed on me. So
Heck yeah.
yeah.
Well, man, this has been super fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed myself.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah, this is awesome.
Coffee was decent?
Coffee was great. Can't complain.
Excellent. Anything else that you wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on today?
I mean, not that I can think of. I think we kind of covered the bases.
Yeah,
like,
dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, this was super fun.
I had a good time. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming. Thanks for responding so quick. I'm glad that we were able to make this happen as efficiently as we did. Sometimes it takes a few months to get people on. So
right. You were supposed to do it last Sunday, but I woke up not feeling too hot. So,
dude, it's what did I do last Saturday? I think I did like a game night with friends or something. But I set an alarm because I knew you were coming over, and so the alarm went off. And when I saw your text, there was a small part of me where I was like, "Thank God, I'm in the exact same boat."
Yeah.
I texted you back, and then I was like, "I'm going back to bed." And then waking up at like 11 o'clock
wasn't meant to be
10
that day.
times better.
Yeah.
So this all worked out.
It
for
worked
the best.
out. Awesome.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Well, to the audience, thank you guys for tuning in this morning. I really appreciate you guys. If you would do me a huge favor, and if you enjoyed today's episode, go leave a 5-star review on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And my promise is to you is that to this day and for the foreseeable future, we are still ad-free. I don't want to include ads yet. I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to bring awesome individuals like Andy to you guys to add value to your life. So if you would do these 3 small favors for me so that we can continue to grow the podcast, I would be so grateful, and it's the best present that you could get me. In the meantime, I hope that you guys stay healthy, stay happy, and we'll see you next Saturday for another episode on DSNSB. Bye, everyone.
Boom.